Hi, everybody. All my Nurture Your Pet parents, and even those that do not have pets in their lives as yet or not planning to have. This conversation that I'm going to have, and I will introduce you to her, Monique Brignoni. The conversation that we're going to have today applies not only to our pets, but also definitely to humans. And I will give you a personal example how Monique has touched my life. Thank you, Monique Brignoni. I want to introduce her to all of you. You blow my mind, by the way, Monique, with
Oh,
all
sweetheart.
everything that you have, what I've, listened to you about. You literally blew my mind, and I cannot wait to share everything that we're going to discuss today with all the viewers.
You do know that the light that you see in me is in you, right? Is a reflection of your light, my
Was
dear.
that Rumi?
Yes. Well,
Beautiful.
that's a
Yeah,
general, yeah. But
that's,
Rumi, yeah. I
I
love
love that.
Rumi.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. So Monique left behind the glamorous role of personal assistant to a prince to follow her true love, animals and the unseen. Her path was forever changed by the death of her beloved cat, Rami, which sparked over a decade of study with a vet, a shaman, and a Tibetan monk, eventually leading her to become a human death doula. We're going to talk about this. What is a death doula? Yet, it was the animals themselves who became her greatest teachers, inspiring a more conscious way of honoring our pets as they near the end of life and turning the challenges of loss into a profound healing and awakening. Through her signature program, Walk Your Pet Home, Monique helps pet parents consciously navigate their animals' final days with peace, presence, and sovereignty, transforming grief into a lasting bridge of love across forever. She also trains and mentors aspiring pet death doulas across the globe. Monique's mission is to support the awakening of animal lovers, helping them come home to themselves and become a light for both animals and the world, mankind. And this is so true because you've really you've really awakened something in me, Monique. We are going to post all the links to Monique's contacts, websites, her apps, her social media, and definitely the courses and the trainings she offers. All that we are going to post here so that after this, I know that you will be interested to hear much more about her. Her website is phenomenal. Monique Brignoni, thank you. I'm sitting here in Hong Kong. Tell us where you are right
Oh,
now.
thank you. First of all, thank you so much, Nita. I'm deeply honored to be here. Thank you so much. You're such a beautiful soul. I am in Switzerland right now, the Italian part of Switzerland.
What is your town called?
Well, my town is actually a little small village of 88 people, and it's called Fescoggia. So,
It
but
must be,
it's close to Lugano, where the lakes are. Yeah, Lake Lugano,
I
and
mean,
you
we here can only dream of visiting a place like that, but
can.
you're living in a beautiful area. And I have to also say, Hong Kong is stunning. I live here already 34 years, and Hong Kong, Asia, China,
Yes.
this whole region is
Oh,
also really, I
yeah.
feel very fortunate to live where I do, but I would love to come and visit your region, that part of Switzerland. Very, very
And
much.
of course, I would love to come and see yours. So
Oh, for
yes,
sure.
absolutely, yes.
For sure. For sure. So, Monique, we're so excited to have you here and for you to explain your important work and how that helps us. So
Mm.
let us start with what is a death doula? This is a very new concept, at least new over here. Can
Yeah,
you tell us what that is?
of course. So a death doula is someone who accompanies another being through the end of life with presence, compassion, and spiritual understanding. So it's not a medical position. It encompasses a holistic view.
Mm-hmm.
And it's someone who walks beside, again, we're not trying to cure, to fix, but we are holding space, guiding, and supporting a peaceful transition with love.
Right.
In
And
Western,
mhm.
sorry.
Yes,
In
go ahead.
Western countries, the word doula is becoming more known, especially for childbirth. Maybe you've heard of birth doulas.
Yes.
Yes. And so it's the same door. So childbirth, birth doulas help the transition from spirit to physical, and death
Yes.
doulas help the transition from physical to spiritual. And actually, this role is ancient. It's known for generation. It was a role that was passed down from our elders. Each generation passed down and down. It's only in these last moments, last 100 years, let's say, that things have become totally medicalized, and we've lost that tradition of supporting the dying, and not just physically, also emotionally, mentally, and spiritually.
So, Monique, let's say people that don't live near to you, can you also support them online while they have, a pet that's transitioning or even a human? Can you support them online with that live?
Absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely live. In fact, I live in a very secluded area, and most of my work is online. And
Okay.
it's absolutely possible, yes, from all over the world. Yeah,
That is
absolutely.
so
Yeah,
important to know because that way, you can reach us. You can reach us here.
of course.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So I want you to,
And
go
and
ahead.
sorry, I wanted to also add that, the pet death doula is maybe that is something new, that is something new in the sense that or maybe it's reawakening, because we are basically extending this reverence to animals as well. As a long time ago, or some time ago, animals were thought of not having soul, consciousness, but they do have a spiritual journey of their own. They do have souls, consciousness, as we know, right,
Yes.
today. And
Yes.
because of that, there has to be a reawakening of a more honoring way to accompany them in their transition as well, right?
How
So that's
incredible.
yeah.
I had never heard of a death doula for pets. So this was my first time that when I was listening to you here, I was listening to you a few months ago,
Yeah.
and I had never heard of that before. And I feel not only do you help that transition for the pet, that soul journey, but
Yes.
I feel it's also so comforting for the people who have
Yes.
to see this. A lot
Yes.
of comfort. Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that you say this, because effectively that's 90% of the work, because
Yeah.
animals know how to die.
Yeah.
The problem is we are not used to that. We are no longer used to that. We haven't been taught how to deal with that. And so we're in a culture that pushes death away.
Mhm.
And what we don't know, we fear.
Yeah.
But when we are able to have a calm mind, a peaceful soul, when we understand what is going on, so we have an understanding of what is going on physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, but
Mhm.
also we're able to have that ability to come and be present, so not run away, but be present and calm,
Mhm.
then that is the best gift that we can give to our animals. It seems so simple, but the reality is that the end of life, from the moment we get the final diagnosis, then we spend it all in panic, trying to either decide when is the right time. We have to, that we don't want them to be in pain. But all of that, we want to try and heal them. I understand all of that. But that takes us in that fight or flight. And
absolutely.
Dying needs to be peaceful. Dying is like, imagine that you're just relaxing into the unknown, letting go completely into the unknown. And if you have somebody that you love that is all stressed out next to you, that is what they feel. They're not feeling your love anymore. They're feeling your stress. They're feeling your worry. They're feeling, and I know we worry because we love them, but we have to be real in understanding that when we are worried, what our pets are feeling? They're feeling the worry. They're not feeling the love, right? So the love is, the peace. When we are peaceful, they can be peaceful, and they can let go to the big unknown, and that is beautiful. And they know how to do it. Yeah.
Monique, tell us a bit about your journey. How did you arrive at the work that you are doing right now? It's such interesting work. Tell us about your story of Rami, which is so beautiful.
Yeah. So I didn't start this as a profession just like that. It was more of a calling. And yes, it did come from the love that I had for my little cat, Rami. Rami, at 6 years old, he was diagnosed with a terminal illness. And I just didn't, the reality was that life made it so that the vet didn't even tell me what he had. It was a strange thing. I went to the first vet, and the first vet said that he had something in his bowels, and they wanted to operate to see what it was. And if it was a blood clot, they would just take it out. If it was cancer, they would just euthanize him whilst he was asleep. And I was quite like, what? It was just shocked, with a 6-year-old cat, you're very shocked in that moment. And I remember I was holding Rami, and in that moment, he obviously felt my shock, and he was just hanging on to me. And he was like, don't let go, right? And so I went for a second opinion, and that was actually a vet friend of mine. And he told me, oh, no, there's nothing in the bowels. He might have an infectious disease. And I said, okay. So he did all the tests and everything. And I went home. And in the meantime, I was trying to infectious disease. I decided, okay, well, how can I treat that naturally until I know what it is, right? And so I started giving him spirulina, which Rami did not like. He did not like that. Yet I was like so focused in healing him and making him, better, that I would just tell him it's for your own good. And I would put it in a syringe, and I would squirt it in his mouth, and I would hold him down whilst I was doing that. He was a black and white cat. He became a green and white cat, well, a green and black cat. I became green as well. But there was nothing inside. I was so worried, and I was so focused on him healing and getting better, that the one thing that he needed most, which was my calm and my love, was not there. And when we are not in that presence, we are not hearing what they want, and we are forcing what we want on them. And so I was forcing this spirulina, and and I kept saying, it's for your own good, it's for your own good. And then the vet kept asking me to go and do some fluids to help him, because anybody would have known, Nita, that Rami was dying. I was the only one that didn't realize that, because I didn't see it. I didn't realize that because I was inside of my fight or flight. And he was just, asking me to go every day, 1 hour to go and 1 hour to come back to give those fluids. And but he never told me what he had. And only after a week had I asked, by the way, what does he have, right? And when he told me what he had, which is an incurable disease, the only thing that my mind could think was of remembering one article I read one time, a long time before, of somebody actually healing that illness. And so I said, well, while she's having the fluids, I'll just run out and go and find this miracle woman, right? And so remember, I went out and I went to find the internet and whatever I went, at the time there wasn't internet in your hands. But then when I arrived at the restaurant where they had all, internet and all of that. And I remember at that moment, I put my hand in my bag to get my phone to call this woman because I had found her number, and my vet just called me. And he said, come quickly. And my blood stopped running through my heart. I was just, Rami had just died, and he died on a cold metal table whilst I was out there trying to find a solution for his, to keep him alive. And that was so shocking to me that I was not able to be with him with love, that it just shook me. I just said, I need to understand. And I kept asking myself, where did the love go? Where did the love go? Because of course I love him. I'm not saying I didn't love him. Of course I did. But in that moment, I was only exuding worry and trying to fix and all of that, but he wasn't feeling that love, right? And that was my biggest guilt ever, right? And so I went into a crisis, and in that crisis, and it was really interesting because as my boyfriend helped me to bury Rami, and as we were closing the last piece up, I started digging him back up. I was screaming, I was digging him back up. And I remember at that moment, my boyfriend at the time said to me, he said, what's with all of that meditation? Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing was that, yes, I was going through a training in meditation at the Chopra Center. So not a small meditation. Mm-hmm. But yet I had this compartmentalized, it was like, this is meditation, this is my spiritual journey, this is my Rami, and this is my grief.
Yeah.
There were two different things, two separate things. And so I realized that there had to be something. But anyway, I went into the crisis. And the good thing about a crisis is that you can't lose anything else. There's nowhere you can go. And so I turned into myself, and that allowed some space, some energetic space, between all of my thoughts that were making me very, very, very sad. And then Synchronicity made me find a book of an Italian vet who was an expert in the end of life, in the natural end of life. And so I went there and I said, and I demanded that he helped me understand what was going wrong. And he was I was all stressed out. I was like, I need to know what's wrong. And he said, okay, you need to calm down first. And then you need to do all of my other courses first. And then I can tell you about that. And at the beginning, I hated him because of this, right? I wanted to know, and I wanted to know in that moment. The reality was I was too stressed to even get any information in it. And so that started my journey. That with Stefano, that started my journey. Yeah.
Monique, when I heard that, I said, oh my goodness, this was sort of a similar journey of mine too, not to the extent that you have taken it. But 4 years ago, I lost one of my beloved pets. Her name was Gina. Yeah. Cute little Yorkie, a ball of energy. Now, I have practiced and studied meditation with my masters in the Himalayas since my early 30s. So we're talking 30 years ago. Practicing meditation in the Himalayas with my masters, and also following the practice of a beautiful master called Paramahansa Yogananda.
Oh, of course. Yes.
So I've been practicing that for so many years, right? But when Gina passed away, transitioned, I was like you. I was beside myself with grief. So you shouldn't feel guilty, because this is what we all, it's a natural response. that,
Yeah.
trying to fix things and trying to make them well.
Yes.
And so I was so into, she needs surgery and then, try and get her well. But when she left, just like you, there was a moment I just fell on the floor crying and sobbing. And I said, where could she have gone? And then I pulled out all the books of my masters and started reading it all over again and understanding the metaphysics. And it took my spirituality, just like you say, what happened to all this meditation. Your
Yes.
partner said that to you. I was feeling the same. What happened to all the years of meditation? And now my beloved pet passes transitions, and I am lost. I'm a basket case.
Yes.
And seriously, it took my spirituality, her passing took my spirituality to a complete different level.
Yeah.
And it took that for me to, like you say, awaken on another level.
Yeah.
So that was sort of similar to
Yes.
Rami, your experience with Rami. We start to question now, and we think, okay, we're on a beautiful spiritual path, but then we're never, and no matter what, we're still never prepared for the inevitable.
No, of course. I mean, it is the greatest unknown, right? But one thing is that you're just reminding me is that how it's like a next step in our spiritual evolution, because in a way, it's like bringing the meditation off of the cushion and into real life.
Correct.
Because, when we close the door, we meditate, we're like we're shielding ourselves from everything. And yeah, it's easier to meditate like that. But can you meditate? Can you bring that same peace and presence and allowance for what is into your most difficult moments? So that is
really
that's where the rubber meets the road. Yes.
And is that when you say, so how the shaman story merge, you talk about merging the spiritual life with the human life. Is that what you meant when that started merging for you?
Yes, it's definitely a beginning, but definitely I see this all the time, even today. The beauty, we are both divine and human, right? So the thing is not to like say, I don't want to be in this world and go away of it. And it's not even to just be all just physical, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have to really honor the truth of who we are, which is infinite, multidimensional, never dying beings, right? And so eternal beings. And so what happens is when we're able to connect to both, to bring in all of these dimensions in one, then life becomes so much easier, right? Life and death. Yeah. Because we're not just seeing it from the physical, we're seeing it from this broader perspective that makes us understand so much more.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Monique, you said some beautiful things, and I would love to repeat some of the phrases. And if you want to, elaborate on that, you said, when we are out of alignment, life has a way of bringing us back to balance.
Yes.
I loved what you said. You said animals are teachers during challenging times, like end of life. They teach us who we truly are.
Yes.
You say death is not really an ending, it's an awakening.
Yes.
Those words were absolutely precious. You say there is so much unnecessary suffering happening in the world. We see it as we are, not how it really is. And we focus on the physical, like you were just now repeating. Death is not looking for a solution, you say. So here in the East, Monique, euthanasia is quite common.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah, and in the West as well.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, the main reason is no one wants to see their beloved pet suffer.
Absolutely.
Okay?
I agree. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so like you say, we get a diagnosis and we fret and we worry, and the most important, the first thing we ask is, how can we fix this?
Yes.
And the second thing is my pet in pain?
Yes.
And over here, the word hospice or palliative is not yet, well, at least much
Yes.
heard of. So we immediately say, okay, euthanasia.
Yes.
But you say this is such a sacred journey, and that is not looking for a solution, you say.
Yes.
It is a very special, sacred journey that we
Yes.
go through with our pet. And if you want to elaborate on that, please go
Yeah,
ahead,
sure.
because what you talk about, the lower and the higher frequencies, that's what I meant with you blew my mind. And you
Okay.
literally helped me personally, and I'll tell you why. Go ahead.
All right. Okay. So let's start from there then. So, like we said, when we have a terminal diagnosis, we love our pets so much, and we immediately go into fear, into trying to fix, into it's the fight or flight. It's the survival brain. Now, the survival brain is meant to find a solution. That's why we try to fix. It's meant to be quick, and it's meant to be unconscious. So, for example, I'm walking across the road now with all of these electric cars, right? We don't hear them come. All of a sudden, I turn around and I see an electric car. I see the car coming. And before I know it, I'm on the other side of the road. I didn't go like, okay, so what am I going to do? I need to go to the other side of the road. And I know this is a simple example, right? So what do I do? Do I walk? Do I run? No, I was on the other side of the road without thinking of how. And the reality is that is like it's a survival brain. It does it quick, and it does it unconsciously. So I am all about bringing back consciousness, bringing back presence, bringing back that peace, because in the peace and the presence, that is when we really truly hear our animals. That is when we truly hear their path. That is when we truly hear what they really want as well, right? Because when we are in that fix mode, when we're in that fight or flight, we are always, it's a normal thing to think about us. For example, again, I'm in the road, right? At that moment, it's not that I go around and I go like, oh, is there anybody else in the road that I may need to tell them that this car has arrived? No, we just, like I said, it's so automatic. We find ourselves the other side. And so that part of the brain is not a compassionate, loving brain, because it's a brain that needs to get us save our lives. But at the end of our pets' lives, we're not saving our lives. we're helping them, right? If we have to help them, we're helping them. But when we are in stress and worry, we don't know. But that's how we are running, right? That's how our brain are functioning. And that means that if you don't have the capacity in that moment to feel for another, to know what is best for another, because like I said, I'm not looking for anybody else to see if they're okay. I'm already on the other side of the road. Then it's about us. So if you think about the end of life, the questions are always, I don't want my pet to suffer. I don't want my pet to live a long life, maybe suffering in the future. I am worried. I need to find a solution. I need to do an energy healing course. Whatever it is, you will find that it always begins with I. Why? Because in that survival brain, that's the only thing that our brain can do. It's not us. It's not that we don't have love. It's just exactly how nature created us. So the first thing we have to do is to come back to that presence, to that calm, so that our brain knows that we're not in fight or flight, knows that we're not trying to run from our lives,
Mm-hmm.
because a worry indicates to the brain, go in fight or flight, because you need to save your life. And peace indicates everything is fine. Let me connect. And when we connect, we can expand our energies, and we expand it so much that we can feel what another one is feeling. That is compassion. Because compassion, how it's told to us by vets and by society today,
Mm-hmm.
is a conscious decision. Let me make a compassionate decision. That is mine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you want to do, let me make compassionate decision out of fear, because I don't want my pet to suffer, which is good, right? I'm not saying we don't want our pets to suffer, but just bear with me.
Right.
It's not out of love, it's out of fear. I am fearful that my pet is going to suffer.
Yeah.
So compassion is a high state of being. And you, with all the studies that you've done with Yogananda, the Yogananda teachings, of course, you know that compassion is a state of being. And it's a state of being that we reach when we're in the higher frequencies. Yeah. So I like to say, for example, the higher frequencies and the lower frequencies is not like good or bad. It's just a different frequency. So the love is really, really high frequency. Compassion is really, really high frequency. Grief, sadness, worry, low frequency, very slow frequency. And so what happens is, imagine a radio. When you're in worry or grief or sadness, you can't be on the same channel as love. It's two different channels. That's why I said I loved my Rami so much. So I'm not saying we don't love our animals. We love them so much. But what are we doing? We're giving them out all of the bad vibes, our worry vibes. So if that's why I'm saying that animals help us to connect more to who we truly are, because they connect us more to that inner, not the fight or flight, but that inner peace and calm that is who we are, from which we can take decisions that are good for us, for our animals, for our vets, for everyone around us, right? But the more we're in stress, the more our energy constricts around us, and we can't feel another one. We can't feel anybody else, because our energy is so closed in. So the only way that we can really truly make a compassionate decision, whatever that is by being in that state of peace and being able to expand our energies to understand what our pets truly need. Now, the other thing you are asking about euthanasia. Euthanasia is a solution, right? It's like, and again, I'm not saying never to do euthanasia or not, but I have learned, I've studied many, many, many years on the natural end of life. And as you can imagine, nature knows a lot more than we do, right? Mm-hmm. And so in the same way that we come into this world, and nature has organized from that tiny cell that becomes the miraculousness of who we are.
A miracle.
I don't know how my eyes work. Yeah, I remember studying something in school, and probably, you know, doctors and vets know a lot more about what's inside of us, right? I kind of know that my heart is here, right? That's it. But you know, going beyond that, they still don't know. A lot of illnesses, they don't know why they come. They don't know. There's a lot of things that is not known. They don't know how we become who we are and the sophistication that we have. That's nature. And I say that's like an intelligence that is within us that directs all of that. Well, Nita, we have that same intelligence within us even when we die. So why do we think that we need to fix death? Right? We're not fixing coming into this life. Why do we need to fix that? Right? Mm-hmm. So that same intelligence is there. And when I studied what that intelligence does at the end of life, and I understood, because vets study euthanasia, they study medicine. Vets are amazing at keeping a body alive. That's their job, right? But when we are talking about the transition from physical to spiritual, you need to be in the spiritual realm. You need to understand that transition and everything that goes in between, you know, the emotional, what's happening emotional to the person or the animal, what's happening mentally, what's happening spiritually, because dying is mostly spiritual. And that's not the vet's place to understand that. It's not their job, right? And that's why I feel that it's important for us to become more responsible for all of our pets' life and understand that part of life too. Because today we've been taught, well, don't worry about death because we've got it figured out, right? They used to tell us, don't worry about food because we've got it figured out. The vet that I studied with, he told me that in vet school, they had 1 hour where they learned about food, right? You and I know that in order to keep our pets well, we need to look into food very well, right? We need to study that in the same way that we are training our puppies. You know, there's all of these things that we do, but then we kind of stop. We don't go the last step. And that last step is what changes completely how they live the end of life and how we live the end of life.
So true. Sorry, I want to tell you that when you were talking about it's all about us, again, you know, with Gina, I just mentioned it brought my spirituality to another level.
Yes.
My mother passed away about 4 months ago. And now I like to use the word transition. I don't like to use those words as passed away or that. Yeah. I've learned I prefer transitioning.
Yes.
But Monique, I was with her for months and I forgot everything again. It was all about me. It was all about me. I tried to make her well.
Yes.
I was very sad, obviously not in front of her, but when I'd go in the room next to her, I would cry, but then in front of her, laughing and joking. But I'd be in my room grieving. Then she transitioned. And I cannot tell you again, the grief, I was inconsolable for months. Yeah. And my mother lives in the Caribbean, in a beautiful island. That's where I grew up, on a Dutch island called Curaçao. It's a Dutch Caribbean island. And I came back to Hong Kong after she transitioned, and I have 6 beautiful, beautiful furry companions. And one of them, Oliver, my golden retriever, 16 years old, I could see that he was not moving the way he normally would, and I subscribed that to arthritis because of his age, but otherwise he was eating and everything, was doing everything perfect. In the meantime, I arrive and I see him, but I am so beside myself with grief regarding my mom. Yeah. And I thought, okay, now this is going to happen to Ollie soon. Yeah. So I wanted to prepare myself, and that's when I started looking for experts that I could listen to sitting here in Hong Kong online, and I came across one of your interviews. And when you spoke about vibrating on low energy, which I was, and my mother, where she is, you know, as she's passing and passed on, you mentioned her energy field expands. Yes. And when I'm grieving, my energy field contracts. Those were words. And I was like, I rewound what you said 3 times. And I was like, wow. Yeah. This is not correct. I need to stop the grieving because my mother and I, we cannot connect this way. And I promise you, Monique, I started grieving less and less consciously because of what you said, consciously. And now to look at my mom's energy field expanding, and when, like you said, we're traveling in different directions. I cannot tell you how close I feel about my mom. No grief. I'm so happy where I am. Today is her birthday, Monique.
Oh.
And this is her first birthday well, her first birthday where
Yeah.
I'm not with her. I'm with her all her birthdays. I will fly there, we'll be together. This is the first time that you can see I'm not grieving because of what you said. Expand. This energy field, vibrate on a higher energy. And then Ollie transitioned last week in my arms, my golden retriever. And again, what you said to me, well, you said on the interview, and that's why I called you. I said, please, Monique, please, 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 talk to me, talk some more to me, and talk to all of us here, because this wisdom, we're not, I mean, it's not mainstream. Even me, who has practiced meditation for so many years,
Yes.
I probably learned about it, but
Yeah.
I forgot, because at that
Yeah.
time I wasn't going through someone transitioning or a pet
Yes.
transitioning. So you read it only when it starts applying to yourself.
Yes.
And the transition of Oliver, you will be so happy to hear this, Monique. It wasn't about me, it was all about him. It
Oh,
was
no.
all about him. And he transitioned in my arms. You would have been so proud of me, because
Of course I
I
am.
did. I applied everything you said, and it made all the difference in the world. So today, on my mom's birthday, I know she's thanking you. I know Oliver's thanking you, and
Yeah.
thanking you for me, to have helped me. And this is what I would love for you. This is the talk. When I asked you, could you please speak to us? And you immediately, again, you emailed me back right away. Sure, I'm here to help anyone that needs help in this extremely distraught,
Yeah.
painful,
Yeah.
painful
Yeah.
time in their life. And not only the
Absolutely.
minute they transition or just before, but
Mm.
way after. So I'll never
Yeah.
ever forget what you have contributed
Oh, sweetheart.
to
You know,
me.
I'm just thinking about how we had our interview planned for days before or
Yes,
week before, and
yes.
then because I wasn't well, we changed it, and this is serendipity
And I
telling
didn't tell you
us.
why. I didn't tell
Yeah,
you why.
yeah,
I put
yeah,
it
yeah,
down, and this is what I'm trying to say.
yeah,
I I personally
yeah,
believe that
yeah,
my mother wanted it to happen
yeah,
on her
yeah,
birthday.
yeah, yeah. You wanted you to connect those two things, which is
Yes,
beautiful. Yeah,
yes. And
and
and I loved it.
yeah,
So you you also say about, you talk about love, and you talk about fear, and you talk about how grief gets transformed, how we can
yes.
transform that grief into love. And you gave a beautiful analogy of the oyster. And
Yes.
that again blew my mind.
Yes, yes, yes. Yes, because if you can see, it's like the sand, the oyster comes from a piece of sand that the oyster then creates into a pearl. And that's exactly what happens to us when we walk this journey consciously and peacefully, rather than going from fear, right?
Yeah.
And why does that happen? That happens because our pets are masters. I mean, our pets help us throughout life. They are filled with lessons. They are present. They're in the present moment. They know how to bring back, even if let's say that they have a paw, they're in pain. They're like, oh, this paw hurts, and then 2 seconds later, oh, look, there's a butterfly. Oh, there's
Yeah.
food, right? And then
Yeah.
it's like we are like all the time focused on that one thing that doesn't work, right?
Mhm.
They are not. They can easily come back to the
Mhm.
present moment and
Mhm.
what is important. That's why they have a completely different they have like magical abilities, we can call them, seen from us humans, in how to deal with pain, for example. But they have so many gifts that they can give us. But when they are starting to not be well, what happens is we've guided them throughout their lives. We've decided when we go on walks, what to do, all of the things we decide, right? At the end of life, they know the journey well, right? So I know that when we follow them, then we are now becoming the students. And the lessons, the biggest lessons that they can teach us are the ones that we really need. So especially, like I was saying, the presence and the calm is one of the things that completely changes how we live it. But another thing is this: let's say that we have a pet that is not well or starting on the end of life journey, and they start changing. You know, they're a bit subdued. They're a bit. Well, if we are able to stay in that, not like we are leaning into to what is happening, rather than immediately trying to run away, find a solution, try to fix, detach because we don't want them to see subdued, right? And just lean in, sit, be present, what's happening, right? And be with that. Then we would start to feel, like I said before, everything else that is going on beyond the physical. Because one of the things, like you mentioned before, is like, whilst the body is closing down, whilst the body is becoming weaker and weaker and weaker, they start to walk slower, they start to not eat that much, they start to maybe have a little bit of pains and things like that, like it's normal in all bodies that are, you know, going. My grandmother at 95 years old, she's the same thing, right? She's got pains as well. I'm talking about my grandmother. My grandmothers are already dead, but my mom, some time ago, when I was creating the course, I was telling her about the quality of life table. And I was telling her how I was creating a session on that. And she says, what's the quality of life table? I said, well, it's a table with all of the, you know, the phrases that help you to understand when it's ready to euthanize or not. And so she asked me more about that table. And then she looks at me and she goes like, ooh, thank God I'm not a dog. Otherwise you would euthanize me. Because yes, she's got pains. She has most bad days, more than good days. She's got, you know, like we don't think about these things, but we are looking at a you know, rational questions that have nothing to do with how our animals are, or even people are living that time. And like I said, when we actually get to the closer to the end of life, what is happening? The body's becoming weaker, but the energy is becoming stronger and stronger and stronger. Now, you know about meditation, Nita, and you know very well how, let's say that you have a pain in your body and you sit down and you meditate. Isn't it true that that pain softens? Absolutely. Or even goes away? Yeah. Right? I think it doesn't have to go away, but it at least softens, right? Okay. So now imagine, now what you and I can do in meditation is this much compared to the high frequencies that happen when the veils are opening, when a body's preparing to transition, when the frequencies of that being is raising and raising and raising, because they need to meet the frequencies of where they're going, right? Because it's not a place, they're not going in heaven, they're just changing in frequency. And so I can do this, right? It doesn't have to be up or down, but we like to think of up, right? So they're raising enormously in frequencies. So imagine it's like us in a million times of meditation. Okay. So in that moment, do you really think that they're feeling the pain? In that moment, do you think that they are like, oh, I really don't want this. I've just thrown up and I don't like the taste in my mouth. I really wish I was dead. And can you help me? That is a rational thought, a human rational thought. Animals don't have rational thoughts. They don't think, I don't want this is not, I don't like this. I would much rather have this. They live with what is. And because of their abilities to not be focused on the one thing that is wrong, they're able to live so much better than we are, right? And also in a better level of pain as well. But in that moment, in the last moment of transition, spirit, the energy has a lot of effect on the physical. So I have spoken to a lot of animals that were transitioning, close to transition, and they're like completely in bliss. I've had a mystical moment, in a moment where I was close to my cat Shen, and I was looking at him and he was looking awful, Nita. I tell you, I was like, and I was crying because I was saying, he's probably suffering. What am I doing? And and the vet couldn't help me, and a lot of things were going on, and I was just crying. And then I had this mystical moment where I held him, and I felt a peace that I'd never felt in my entire life. And I even like looked around and went, what is happening to me? Not even in my best meditation did I find such a peace. And then that transformed into unity consciousness, which is that of you are, you know, exactly, you're the other one. So I was Shen in that moment. And I can tell you that I was only feeling bliss in that moment. So what we see with our eyes and what is really happening can be two different things. So we need to understand about these processes to know when they are really in pain and we need to rush to the vet, when they are in that phase of the transition where pain is no longer necessary because the body knows that it's dying and it's turning off all of the pain signals, because pain helps us to, let's say I put the hand on the fire and the pain says, take it away, stupid, right? So I won't burn my hand. But when a body knows that it's dying, it doesn't need to send you a pain signal. There's no need for pain in that moment. So we need to know if it's before that moment, and we can help our pets because we never want them in pain. Well, that's one of the things that I don't want either. And then we have all of the various holistic ways of supporting them, even medicine, if that is the case, right? So I'm not saying not, but then there comes a moment where all of that is not necessary. And where the thing that they need the most is our peace. And imagine, like even 95% of people want to die at home. Do you really think that a pet wants to, whilst the soul is leaving the body, they want to go at a hospital or at a vet center in the one place that they really don't usually like? Some pets like it, but most pets don't, right? So it's like we need to understand this phase so that we can help them in what they need. Because I can tell you, imagine now that you're laying there and you're ready to go, you're ready to leave, your soul is ready to leave, right? And I have my students do a meditation where it's like, what would you like around you? What view would you like to have? Who do you want next to you, right? And it's never a beeping sound of the hospitals, like most of our people die in hospitals with beeping sounds, right? And then it's like, and so, that is something to consider. And now imagine that you're so relaxed in this beautiful place and your soul is about to leave, to go out of the body. And all of a sudden, a very loving pet parent that loves you more than anything grabs a hold of you, starts rushing to put you in the car, go to the vet because they're worried that you're not breathing well, right? Oh, well, you're going to be like, what, wait, my soul was leaving. I was like, that's not the right, that's, so we need to know all of that. We need to know when these things are going to happen. And what I've found is that, of course, I'm going to say easier is the wrong word. So take it in brackets. It's easier to do euthanasia because it's like, I have the problem, and therefore, and then in a 1 minute, the problem is resolved, right? They're out. My problem is I don't want my pet in pain, and then the problem is resolved. When we're looking at a natural end of life, there come a lot of moments, a lot of ups and downs. Maybe our pets start to become subdued, and then we worry, and then all of a sudden they're happy again, right? And so we are happy again.
Yeah.
But what I have noticed is that it's okay to cry because we start grieving. We start grieving in the moment that we know that they're going to die, which is fantastic because that is how emotions move through us. And you will probably know by spiritual practices that all emotions are not meant to stay with us. They're meant to come and pass through us, right? So I'm happy today. I'm happy in this moment, right? And then a second later, I can be sad, or I can be joyful. I can be pensive, right? There's all of these things that come and go, right? The problem is when something sticks, when something stays stuck. And the problem with euthanasia is that it's a sudden death. So you go in with Fluffy to the vet, and all of a sudden, Fluffy's not there anymore. When we're accompanying them through the end of life, in all these moments, we go through the pain, and then they come and lick our tears dry. And then they make us laugh because they do something funny. And then we're crying again. And then they make us laugh again. And so all of this helps us to go in and out and in and out, and nothing stays stuck. That grief doesn't stay stuck. It moves, right? And by the time our animals die, what happens is our brain has understood what's happening. The grief is often the question of the brain going like, where is Fluffy? Oh, Fluffy's dead, right? Whereas when we walk with them consciously, not pushing away, but like, and we have to know, well, it's important to know what is happening, because otherwise we will get fearful, especially because they tell us that natural death is fearful. But when we understand everything that is happening and how they are feeling, right, on all levels, then we can be more peaceful ourselves. And I can tell you that those moments are the moments where we connect even deeper. We connect even deeper because their energy is expanding and we are sitting in that energy. And so by resonance, our energy expands as well, unless we are so stressed that we don't allow it to. But if we are able to stay in the right state, we are being pulled up by the energies of their transition. And I can tell you that many of my students then tell me that, you know, Fluffy died yesterday and it was beautiful. And I know those two words might sound very contrasting, you know, like died and beautiful, but I understand what they mean, because there are so many other things that are happening that helps us, helps the brain, helps the heart, helps the body heal that grief. So what happens is, by the time they die, we've gone through the grief before. It's not that we don't have grief, but you go through it. But with the help of our animals, we're able to heal it.
Yeah.
And we have a template. This is how we are made as humans, right? This is exactly how it's made.
Right.
And yeah, it's just really fascinating. Yeah.
You were talking about how their energy field expands. They're not here really. They don't feel the pain. I wasn't aware of this during my mother's time.
Yeah.
So my mother, about 2 months before she transitioned, she would just stare into space, and she would just look at the sky, because it happened very fast. My mom, before that, it was too fast. And I would say to her, Mom, where are you? Are you okay? And then it took her so much effort to, whatever she was looking in the sky or the bird, it took her a lot of effort to look at me. And with the most beautiful, I looked into her eyes. She says, I'm happy. But I was not thinking that way.
Yeah.
I would say, okay, you're happy. And I would turn around, I'd go to the kitchen to get something, and I would hold my heart, because where are you? I wrote her a letter while she was still here with me, next to me. I wrote her a love letter. And I said, Mom, at times I don't know where you are. It's like you're here, you're there, or you're millions of galaxies away. And I did not know that it is the fact that they are. And I would ask her, do you have pain, Mom, in your body? And she would look at me, she goes, no, darling, I don't feel any pain. I said, okay, are you sure, Mom? Because she had difficulty. I mean, she's in bed all the time. And yes, of course, we take her out in the sun and stuff, but still, she had her sores, and we were attending to that with nurses. And I'm saying, Mom, don't you feel any pain? No. And she felt nothing. And really, for me, when she passed, when you were talking about it needs to be peaceful, and the kind of you're in a serene moment with
Yes.
the person who's passing on, who's transitioning. I would say watching her
Yes.
with her last breath, not having heard you speak and not remembering anything I learned,
Yes.
for me, it was trauma. I didn't
Yes.
show her the trauma. I didn't show her the trauma. It was, but after that, it was beyond grief. It was to a point where I had a traumatic breakdown, and
Okay.
and again, of course, I had to go for counseling because I didn't know
Yeah.
how to put one step in front of the other. From the day I
Yeah.
was born, not see, everyone has different relationships with their parents. Well, mine with
Of
my mom
course.
was very, very, very close. So everyone's
Yeah.
different. But then
Yes.
with Oliver, having heard you, Monique, so I'm seeing him struggling now. And 2 weeks later, after coming back, I take him to the vet. And the vet looks at him and says, Nita, I can feel something in his stomach, and we're going to do a biopsy. But it might not be conclusive. Ollie's 16 years old. We're gonna give him general anesthesia, but we're not gonna go all too deep because it looks
Yeah.
like he has 3 tumors, and also we're definitely not going to operate. Not at this age. My veterinarians are really amazing veterinarians,
Yeah.
and I was calm. I was very calm. They did a biopsy. They came back to me the next day. They said it's not conclusive, but the diagnosis
Yeah.
is cancer.
Yeah.
And my only thing that I said to the veterinarians was, do you think Oliver is in pain? So the
Yeah.
veterinarians went through a checklist with me.
Yeah.
Is he eating? Is he joyful? Is he
Yeah.
happy? Is he?
Yeah.
I said, no, he's
Yeah.
none of that. He's just
Yeah.
struggling with a little walking, but
Yeah.
he's the first to go run outside to the beach.
Yeah.
So the veterinarian said to me, okay, then these are the things you look out for, and then you make a decision when it gets worse.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
obviously it was getting worse, Monique,
Yeah.
to the point where I didn't want him to walk to the beach anymore up and down,
Yeah.
even though the beach is a 6-minute walk. But he loved being at the beach.
Yeah.
Loved.
Yeah.
So I would drive him, and then when I drive him,
Oh,
all my other 6 pets get driven. So every day we were going up and down driving, and he would then
love
run
it.
on the beach and stuff. But then when I saw that, no, now he's really struggling,
Yeah.
I took him back to the vet, and then the vet said, well, now if he's struggling, a golden retriever will eat all the time, so it's not lack of, appetite.
Yeah.
But watch out. And so I went home with pain management,
Yeah.
trying to make this transition, like you said, as natural as possible.
Yeah.
And last week, Thursday night, I slept with him, and I saw it was not good, even with the pain medication.
Yeah.
I got up Friday morning, and every day we were at the beach, and we made use of what you said, be in the present moment. So
Yeah.
whenever I saw him struggle, I wasn't holding my heart. It was
Yeah.
a whole different Nita. I
Yeah.
was enjoying the good moments with him, and
Yes.
give him what he likes, his favorite foods, and all of
Yeah.
them benefited. They got beef and
They all
kinds
got
of
their
delicious
favorite
things.
foods. Yeah.
They went to restaurants, Monique. Ollie went and chauffeur driven by
Yes,
me. They
of
didn't have to
course.
just walk down the road, all of them. We really made those months
Yeah.
beautiful.
I
And
love it.
Friday morning, I wake up and I look at Oliver, and he had this look in his eyes, and I'll never forget it. I just looked at him very gently, and he looked at me, and I know again, because we communicate from the heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not an animal communicator, but I think
Yeah. Oh,
maybe
yeah.
I'm a little bit of a natural. We all have that.
We
And
all,
his
yeah.
eyes said to me, Mommy, it's
Mm.
time, Mommy.
Yeah.
I think I've had enough now.
Yeah.
I called the vets. They came home, and short of having a doula like you, which would have been
Yeah.
beautiful, they they performed two things for me. We did euthanize Oliver.
Yeah.
They were very compassionate. Ollie was ready. As they were injecting him, he wagged his tail, saying,
Yeah.
"Thank you,"
Yeah.
because at that, he was by then
Yeah.
in too much pain and his kidneys were not functioning. And I said, so these are the moments where this time I don't feel the guilt of, because
Yeah.
I feel
No, and guilt doesn't help at all. Absolutely. Yeah.
he
There is no
asked
guilt.
for it. Mhm.
No, we always do the best that we can at the, with everything that we have. And our pets know that, they only see our love, really. So yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I
That I
interrupted.
did what you said. Be still, be in the
Yeah.
moment, and not only at that moment, but
Yeah.
throughout
But
these last
yeah.
months, in the
Yeah.
present moment. And I love the way you say, and this is for me was really the closing words when you said our pets are a divine collaboration.
Yes.
During their life, we have
Yeah.
always been holding their leash and letting them follow. And yes, I would, sit
Yeah.
here, sit there, eat now, whatever.
Yeah.
Now we follow them through their
Yes. Yes. I love that. I mean, I love it. I've lived that, during that end of life journey. I call it a journey because it's not a moment in time where they die. It's like a journey. During that journey, what I found is that whilst the energies are raising, anything that is of a lower frequency starts to bubble up to be healed. And so what happens is usually our pets come into our lives by resonance to help us. It's a mutual help, right? We resonate. And so it's that exact puppy or that exact dog or that exact abandoned cat. We think it's by chance, but no, there's a meaning to all of that. And so in those moments when we understand the pet's mission, why they came here, how they're helping us, all of the I also work a lot on the meaning behind an illness, and that is amazing. Because
wow. I should listen to that. I should take some courses from you and sign up for some of your courses.
That is amazing. That is amazing because I've had so many healings, not because of what I do, but the fact that when we understand what the illness is, because illness comes from a specific emotional conflict that we have. And when we understand that, and when we work on us, right, what happens is that we are able to give a different energy that supports the healing. And now, of course, if it's end of life, like Ollie, I mean, if you and I had spoken, before in that moment as well, it's like 16 years old. They have to die of something, right? It's not that, I wouldn't say, oh, he died of that or that other thing, because, the body needs to, I'm saying unfortunately, but it's normal. In order for the soul to leave, if the soul is ready to leave, the body needs to become weaker. It can't just be like, I'm totally like, okay, and then all of a sudden, the soul leaves. It's a natural process. In the same way that when we come in, we don't come in fully grown up, fully 18 years old, ready to conquer the world. No, we come in as a little cell, and then we have to go through all of that other thing, right? And so it's the same process, but it's the other way around. And when we understand that Mother Nature has it well organized, then and that's an important part as well. I've seen a lot of grief, a lot of people that come to me that say, Fluffy, just to give an example, Fluffy died in horrible pain because, and so I always ask, I said, can you tell me more about it? And then I can tell you that 100% of the times, not 99.9, it's always a end of life process. So it has nothing to do with pain. It has all to do with a specific process. Now, when we know about that process, right, we understand when it's pain, when it's not pain, and when we do need to support them and when not.
Right.
but it changes everything, because, you know, a lot of people feel guilty that they did it too soon, they did it too late, they didn't do it, or they did it, you know, whatever. Guilt always comes. It's part of the journey. It's part of our growth, because to come back to what I was saying before, is this end of life journey. We go through all of these understandings, and it's about who we become in order to support our pets. It's our growth. And the more we expand, the more we grow, we see also the gifts that our pets are bringing us, right? So when we understand the message behind the illness, when we understand the mission that they're here to do, whoa, we understand that it connects to maybe a wound that we've had forever. And it doesn't take years of therapy. It takes being with your pet at the end of life and allowing your pet what they came here to do, to support you in that. Because usually they have the energies, they have the, I'm going to say energies because I can't find the right word, but the qualities. They have the qualities that we need in a certain moment, that we have inside, but we're not able to express. And our pets coming into our lives, they help us with these qualities. First, by just being, they have the qualities and we are living in the same field. So we are resonating with it, and we're slowly starting to understand that quality. And then it becomes, by the time our pets have finished their mission on Earth, which is a very specific time, then it's our time to embody those qualities. But when we just go and we just do euthanasia without knowing all of this, it's more difficult. That's why a lot of people have a lot of grief, right? It's very different than, you know, you taking the time to get to even that euthanasia decision, and even having that natural end of life, and going, and I can tell you that everything comes up that can help you to really deal with the situation, but not only deal with the situation at hand, also deal with your life. Because when we learn about dying, we learn about living.
Yeah.
And now we have, you know, we have the strength of our pets, because we know exactly what that is. And we can put, I always say, the mantle, you know, the fluffy mantle on. And that's a strength in our lives, and they help us grow and connect more to who we truly are, because that's who we are, right? We are not filled with fear. We're not filled with judgment. We're not filled with, those are all layers that we put on top of us.
Correct.
But this is a beautiful journey. When we take this journey, it is truly, it really changes everything. It really does.
I have to say, having lost both of my special, you know, loved ones in a matter of 4 months.
Yeah.
It's been a hell of a ride, but I do feel that I definitely, parts of me have awakened more, and I have to say it's transformed me. I have transformed I'm looking at things in life differently. Slowly but surely. It's baby steps. And this is what you said. The end of life is not the end. It's a transformation. Our gift to them is a peaceful transformation.
Absolutely.
Monique, when you said this, I mean, I have nothing more to add or to ask you, because what you have shared this evening from your beautiful place, your home in Switzerland, is a lot of really, I mean, it's so poetic, all the things that you have said, and it needs to be processed. And there's a lot that we need to process everything you said.
Yeah, no, and there's a lot in there. I mean, I want to share as much as possible, but for sure.
So
but I invite everybody to really listen, because every little piece has a big thing that can open up from there, right?
Yes. I really thank you for your time. Is there anything you wanted to add Feel free. This is your platform. Anything you
Well,
want to tell us?
well,
Anything?
maybe something just simple, you know, the your love, our love, your love for for our animals, for our pets is already enough, you know. It's not that anything that I have said maybe will spike some like, oh, I didn't do this, or why didn't I know that, you know. The one thing that we need to understand is that you know, if your listeners are hearing this, there is a reason, right? There is a reason. They've come to a moment, but it's not about looking in the past to say what I didn't do, right? The animals only feel our love, no matter what we do. That's the one thing. Even my Rami, at the end, you know, he knew I loved him, because he would always look at me with those loving eyes. I was the one that was completely absent. I was the one that wasn't feeling the love anymore, right? But his love for me was there, and there was no judgment. We don't need to be perfect or know all the answers, right? We just need to, like you did, you know, just stay close to them with our hearts open in that quiet place inside of us, because at the end, love speaks louder than fear, right?
You're
Yeah,
a treasure.
it is.
Really, you're a treasure to mankind and to all the animals and the pets. And thank you for sharing all the things that you have learned through your experiences. And really, I can't thank you enough personally for me, what you know, my journey has been with you, because I keep hearing you talk in my ear,
yes,
whisper
my
in
students,
my ear, Nita, you
my
know,
students
be
tell me the
present,
same
Nita.
thing.
Yes, Monique, I'll be present. Yes.
I'm pretty annoying. It's that like voice that says.
My pets were shocked. I mean, I think they were when they were trying to tell me that we got a diagnosis. I think they were reaching for the Kleenex box to give me tissues, expecting that I would fall apart.
Yeah.
But of course, I had to take a couple of deep breaths.
Yes. Yes.
Understand, realize it's not the end, and bam, bam, and I calmly. It was done, and I really say, Ollie was, apart from you, you would have been proud of me, you know, during that time. But
yes, I am.
Ollie's very, very proud of me too. He went beautifully. We immersed his ashes this weekend, and all the dogs from the village, all his buddies from the little town, because I live in a small little town nearby. We all marched to the sea, and it was done with so much grace and so much dignity.
I love that. Can I add just another thing at the end?
Go ahead. Yes, I could never have enough of you.
No, in our world, they say that the grief equals love, right? You know, it's like you grieve as much as you've loved. But that is a problem, because first of all, I don't feel it's true.
Yeah.
Because like I said before, grief has one frequency and love has another one. And so we're either one or the other. We can't have the same. But the problem, and you reminded me of this when you said, you know, the vet gave me the diagnosis and I took a few breaths and I was not, you know, like, you know, in a basket case, right? You didn't say that, but no, like we would imagine that we would all be, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I want to say that comes from, it's not coming from detachment or not love. I know it's not, but I want to clearly state it. It's an ability, and you've grown this ability with your meditations and everything that you're doing, and you just connected the two, and now you're able to come to that present moment, right? And realize that not everything that is said from the outside is truth, right? And there are bigger truths, right? So you were able to tap into that, and you were able to take two deep breaths and be with that. But that is more love. That is love, because how can you stay loving in front of the greatest tragedy? Can you imagine what Oliver was feeling in that moment at the vet? He was like, oh, you know, what's happening? And all of a sudden, but connecting to you, not in crisis, but you being centered, he felt held, he felt loved.
Very much.
That is love. That is love, right? So, and then what happens is, a lot of people say, well, if I'm calm and I'm not crying, I don't love them as much. So we need to, and then they go back to that grief, because everybody says grief is equal to love. So I just wanted to mention this because it's really, to me, this is the greatest demonstration of love. To be able to love no matter what, to be able to be peaceful no matter what. So thank you so much.
You're so right. You're so right, because this is what we were exposed to in the movies and people and family. The more you cry, the louder you cry, that meant you love more. And those that didn't really express it so much were judged for, this person didn't feel anything. And I've learned, I'm never too old to learn something new. So I agree with you. I agree with what you said. I agree with what you said about grief and love. No, that doesn't have to be there.
Yeah.
Love is everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Monique, thank you. And I would love to speak to you again and again whenever we have the opportunity. And I'm going to take some of your courses because they interest me a lot. I want to learn always new things, and really have a wonderful evening where you are.
Thank you so much. You too.
Switzerland. We all send you
big love to all. Love to all. Thank you so much.